Tonight we're driving the 2020 Mercedes-Benz GLS580. It's been a while since we've had a Mercedes-Benz product, and I will say I am quite glad to get behind the wheel of this one this week. Mercedes has really stepped up their game with this new GLS. It's finally a pretty nice SUV counterpart to their top-of-the-line S-Class. The way it looks, the way it feels and drives, the level of quality here is pretty impressive. Tonight I wanted to do a night drive just because this thing is so cool to look at in the dark. We'll do a more in-depth review during the daytime, but I want to show you guys the ambient lighting and just kind of what this thing looks like at night. The back seat is pretty palatial. You get these very comfortable seats with these cushy headrests. Of course, this GLS is pretty much fully loaded, as most press vehicles are. And there are a lot of really good options to be had here. You even get a little third row back there with a decent amount of space if you move these second row seats forward a little bit. The leg room in here is almost ridiculous. It feels like as much or if not more than a Maybach. I will say getting out, the side step is a little bit slim, a little bit narrow, but it does have these grippy rubber parts that make it easier to step on. But as a passenger, I feel like I would want a little bit more support, but I can respect that it does look a little bit sleeker like that. This car has a Burmeister super premium audio system. HD 3D surround. It's about a $4,000 option. And of course, as soon as you get in, the first thing you're greeted with are these two massive touchscreens that kind of have this panoramic effect on the dash. And of course, tonight we've got the ambient lighting going. But, oh man, it's impressive. There is so much adjustability here and customization that you can do. You can individually control this right screen here on the right side of the steering wheel. Control the center gauge cluster with this. Really intuitive, easy to use, and a lot of customizability here. Again, we'll go a little bit more in depth with this later during a day drive, but just know that the infotainment is quite easy to use considering its complexity and all the tech that it includes. And there are about 3 ways that you can operate it. There's a touchpad down here. You can use it from the steering wheel controls, and it also is a touch screen, which is nice. I respect that Mercedes gives you options. Setting off, this 580 is just so smooth. It has the Biturbo V8, and honestly, this is probably the way to go. It has the personality that you would expect from a high-end luxury vehicle in this price range, and it just has a good amount of smoothness and character. It feels special. Or the only downside, really, to this powertrain is it's a little bit more expensive, but also the fuel economy is going to take a pretty big hit. And relative to some of its competitors, we have a few different drive modes. So right now we're in comfort. Sport mode lowers the air suspension down a little bit. And there's also this curve mode, which is pretty cool. It kind of dips the inside of the car in the direction that you're turning and gives you this really neat handling sensation that it's almost like you're leaning in on a motorcycle. It's pretty subtle, but it results in basically no body roll, and it gives this chassis just such a nice, taut, responsive feel. For how big this SUV is, it's pretty impressive at how well it handles. even on winter tires, it can pull some pretty impressive cornering numbers. Getting up to highway speeds, it's dead quiet in here. There's a little bit of wind noise from the wing mirrors, but no tire noise. You could drop a pin in here and you just have to kind of whisper to your passengers. It's pretty nice. This GLS580 does have Mercedes EQ mild hybrid system. You get a little bit of extra power and torque from that, and it also aids in stop-start, running the HVAC and all the screens and everything. And the air suspension in this is pretty high-tech as well. You've got a multitude of different drive modes that correspond with different air suspension settings, and then there's, of course, this off-road mode as well that we'll show you guys a little bit later. But you can really achieve a pretty impressive range and ride height, and comfort mode is just amazing. It just wafts over bumps like they're not even there. It's pretty impressive. Curve mode is fun. This feels like a very special SUV, and Mercedes did a really nice job putting everything together on this. And of course, every time you say Mercedes, it will ask you what you're talking about and what you want, so you got to kind of be careful how you talk in here. The active steering assist works quite well. The stop and go assist does a nice job as well. There's just the safety features, the way everything works and comes together is quite nice. It really eliminates a lot of driver fatigue. The system, I'd say, works pretty well about 95% of the time. You do have to kind of keep your wits about you when, lanes split and merge and change. But there's even a feature here where you can just put your turn signal on and it'll automatically make a lane change to the right on its own. How cool is that? Pretty high tech, pretty awesome. It'll even navigate slight curves and of course come to a complete stop and go. Pretty impressive. Of course, these headlights are fantastic. Really nice visibility. There's a lightness to all the controls, especially the steering. It took me a little bit of getting used to, but it's actually quite nice. It's kind of weird because this is such a heavy, large vehicle, but it really kind of shrinks the perception of how big this thing is, and it just makes it a more effortless and easy vehicle to drive. Mercedes has put a lot of work into making this, I would say, there it is again, just an easy vehicle to live with and not very taxing or tiring to drive. You could spend all day in this thing, no problem, and be very, very comfortable. So while we're in an empty parking lot, I'll show you guys, there is this cool little off-road mode that I'm sure you heard about when this first came out, but it is, don't know exactly what it's called. It's called like bumpy mode or something. Let's see here. Here we go. It's called Free Driving Assist. And basically what it does, you engage it, and it bounces the air suspension. And the idea, it's pretty ridiculous and looks kind of silly from outside the vehicle, but the idea is that it'll give you a little bit more traction over rough terrain, especially in sand. I mean, this is Mercedes having a little bit of fun and making up an excuse for it to be a practical feature, but it's totally Pimp My Ride 1999. It's pretty awesome.
What can I do for you?
Oh, I know. Yeah, I said your name. Sorry. Anyway, like I said earlier, we will get more in depth with this car later on this week, go over some more of the features and everything, but I wanted this to be kind of a quick overview. This thing is really impressive. There's just so much here to discuss and to appreciate, from the little whiff of perfume that you get when you start up the vehicle to just the way it drives and the quality behind everything. See the air suspension lowering there now that we're going a little bit faster. But I mean, this has to be one of the best riding SUVs on air suspension, except for maybe like a Rolls-Royce or Bentley. It's pretty amazing how it just irons over all the potholes and road imperfections. Pretty trick stuff. The seats in here are very comfortable. The layout and everything, the usability of all these features and functions is quite impressive for how much technology there is in this car. You know, it took me a day or two to get used to it, but that's one of my complaints that I've always had with these really high-tech luxury vehicles, is that it's just so tedious to use everything. And there are a lot of menus and settings in this screen, but I will say Mercedes has made it about as easy as it can be to utilize all of this with its various input channels and everything, and I do appreciate that. Yeah, pretty impressive stuff. All right, guys, well, I think we will wrap it up there. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. But for now, we will leave it at that and follow up with a more in-depth review later this week. Reverse cameras, off-road cameras, forward-facing cameras, you name it. This has it all, and they're all quite nice, high resolution. You can just pretty seamlessly filter through everything. Yeah, pretty cool. While we're here, might as well even just go through some of the settings. There's just so much customizability. Lots of info pages, fuel economy. This is a really interesting display. It kind of shows you what the suspension is doing at any single time. Curve mode shows you how it's countering the lean of the vehicle based on the steering angle and speed. Engine shows you all the horsepower and torque that you have. And of course, you can go in and read the whole owner's manual. There are massaging seats, hot shoulder workouts. The media in here is pretty impressive too. Of course, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And all of this is just so easy to control too, which is great. It helps a lot that these screens are responsive and very attractively laid out too. It kind of adds to the premium feel of this. And they're nicely integrated into the dashboard too. I know a lot of people can't stand the floating screens in a lot of new vehicles these days. It's not something that's really bothered me too much, but in this is definitely a nice implementation. I like these big, chunky grab handles here. Nice for when you're off-roading. Alright guys, well, I think that'll wrap it up. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Hope you guys are safe, healthy, and staying at home. We'll catch you later. Take care. And when the lights finally turn off, they just kind of fade to dark. How cool is that? Cool guys. See you later.